This is the international segment of the day where we're going to get views from overseas. So could I have on stage, please, Niels Sondergaard, Lieutenant Colonel Dennis Foster, and Patrick Hayes to speak for Denmark, Ireland, and the USA. And can I have a ripple of applause? Thank you. Well, we're going to start. Niels, you might as well stay there. We're going to start with Niels. This is Denmark is, of course, a country which has a remarkable approval rating by a percentage of a population for hunting sports. So, Niels, please can you explain how on earth you managed to do that?
I will try. Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. As you all know, we have a very high acceptance of hunting in Denmark, and when I say hunting, I mean shooting also. That's just to make that clear. And we are quite concerned, even though it's quite a high acceptance, because one thing is that the public accept hunting. Another thing is whether they understand what hunting actually is about. And as one of the previous speakers were talking about, how you are asking these questions is something that we're also looking a lot into. But first of all, I would like to say that I'm a hunter, because to me it's a passion. I think if I ask my wife, she might say it's an obsession. I don't actually understand what she's talking about, but I think she might say that. But to us in Denmark, it's also something about cultural heritage, tradition, recreation, and gastronomy. If we don't eat what we are shooting in Denmark, it's very hard to justify that we are actually going to shoot something. So every time when we are negotiating the hunting times, we have to argue that everything we shoot, we should eat. The only one species that we don't have to eat is the fox, but all the other species, we have to eat them. Otherwise, the other green organization and the minister that is responsible for hunting don't see why we should hunt these species if we don't eat them. So it's an important thing. Hunting is also use of a renewable resource. That is also one of the arguments that we are using. And I normally say also that the reason why we hunt is that we need food or products, otherwise we starve. But when I look to some of my fellow hunters, I can see some of them are ahead of eating. So probably that's not the best argument. We could also say that it's recreation, we actually like it, and it's a part of some management. And maybe these things have to stick together to get the right argument to why we are actually hunting and shooting. And the best argument is actually recreation, if you ask me. And when I have been discussing these issues in Denmark with people that are very much against shooting and hunting, the only argument they really understand and respect is actually that we do it because we like it. But that demands, as I said before, that we are using what we are shooting, that we have to eat it, and of course the hunting should also be sustainable, otherwise we can't do it. One of our biggest concerns right now is that we have some species that we only hunt because we like to hunt them. That is the species on the right side here. The eider, the partridge, the hare, and a lot of the ducks, we're only hunting them because we like to do it. If we stopped hunting them tomorrow, that probably wouldn't make any difference at all. The species on the right side is different because they are extending in numbers and are creating problems for some of the farmers, the foresters. So we probably will always be able to hunt them. But a lot of species, as I said, we only hunt them because we are in a position where we're doing it in the right way and we have the privilege to hunt them. That's how we look at it. The acceptance is high, very high, as I said before, and it's nice. It's probably some of the highest in the world, probably. But still, if you look down to the numbers here and how we are asking and going further down into the data, we can see that we should be concerned in Denmark about women living in big cities who has no connection to countryside at all. They are very critical, and luckily many of those who are against hunting is because they don't understand what hunting is about. So we have a big task in educating what hunting is about. The hunting rights in Denmark is of course, if you own land, you also have the hunting rights on the land. You can't sell the hunting rights, you can rent it out, but you own them if you own land. And beside that, you can hunt at the marine areas, free for everyone who lives in Denmark. So the social rank in Denmark towards hunting is low. Everyone hunts, even if you are a lawyer or a carpenter, it doesn't matter. When you're together at a hunt, you're equal. So that's maybe also an important thing. We also try to see that there should be room for hunters. For 10 years ago from now, the wolf was back in nature in Denmark, and a lot of hunters said, oh, that's terrible because it will kill all the deer that I would like to shoot. But that's not the right approach, if you ask me. We have to respect that the wolf is back in Denmark. It's come from Germany. It's natural. It's some of our old species that's been there before we destroyed it 200 years ago. So the wolf is actually welcome. And if you look into a bigger perspective, the wolf is actually creating good mechanisms in nature conservation in Denmark. In some of the areas where you had big groups of deer creating big damage on farmland, when the wolf moves in, you can see that the group structure within red deer, for instance, changes, and the damage on farm crops, on forest, are getting lesser. So something very positive is here with having the wolf back in the nature in Denmark. But a lot of hunters also see it as something that's competing to their right to hunt. So we have to be aware of that. Another thing we are doing in Denmark is that we have public hunts. Not that we hunt public. I wouldn't recommend to do that. Probably a bad idea. But we try to invite the public to join us and for themselves to see what hunting actually is about. And if we are doing something when we are out hunting that we can't show to the public, we probably shouldn't do it, or at least adjust it. So that's the approach that we are trying to take on this, and we have had that for maybe 10, 20 years now, inviting that, and it has been quite a big success. Probably such a good success that at the moment, if we are advising that we have a hunt next week in some place in Denmark and invite the public to come, almost no one comes because they know that it's okay. That's what we are concluding, at least. We are also in a position that a lot of people at the social media are really focusing on the harvesting and preparing of game as a part of modern healthy lifestyle. We can see that people that are vegans because they are maybe against the traditional way of producing meat in Denmark. We have a very big production of pigs. But if you serve some meat for them, many of those, even though they are vegans, they would like to eat meat from game because they see that they have had a good life out in nature. So therefore, they're actually okay eating that. And I think that's very positive. For the last 15 years, we have also in national TV had a series called Kill and Eat, and a chef and a hunter go out and have very good things to do together in nature and kill something and eat it. And if they don't actually succeed in killing what they are planning to kill, they normally would have maybe a cormorant or a crow or anything a bit disgusting to eat, and then they eat that if they don't have success when they are hunting. And they always get something to eat, and it has been quite a success. It's almost an hour television with hunting every week in some times of the year, and it's very, very positive. We also compete nature alliation together with other environmental or green organizations. Right now we have a project together with the Danish Society for Nature Conservation and Danish Sportsfisker Association. And we are actually having those who is quite critical towards hunting still having the same task as we are to go out to children and teach them something about nature and to combat nature alliation. That's the main thing. So it's quite good when we can get some of those who are critical towards hunting to go out and do that. We also arrange summer and autumn camps for children and young people. We have very good success by doing that. And approach and principles for that is that we, as I said about the public hunt, we try to do it as open and honest and factual communication that we can. Early focus is important. Forget about the parents because they often have a different view of it, and often because they don't actually know what they're talking about. And sorry to say that young to young is the best, not old grumpy men or women are working here, if you want to talk to children and young people, it's much better if it's someone who's just a few years older. They listen to them. Just sorry to say that. That's just how it is. So that is our approach and principle. We also have the philosophy that sustainable use of renewable resources in nature, like game, provides the basic understanding for protection of nature. Right now we are discussing strictly protected nature in Denmark. I think you're discussing it over here as well. And we are quite concerned if the human are putting out of that there's no room for human being in nature. That's what they're discussing in Denmark, that nature should just be for itself without any interfering from humans at all. That's quite concerning. We also have some facts on that, how it's working, telling children about hunting. And the Outdoor Council in Denmark and the University of Copenhagen made a survey, and they said that when we are using hunting as a part of telling children, young ones, about nature, that's when all pyramids in the formation is in a part of it, because we are killing things and we are eating it. You can't do that much any other places. Another thing we also did some years ago is that we took the leadership when EU were discussing the ban of lead in center-fired rifle ammunition. We took the leadership, went to the minister and said, we would like to make a plan that we will phase out lead in center-fired rifle ammunition within the next 5 years. So instead of being in a position where we will be attacked by all green organizations, also some of the parties in government, we took the leadership, and there has been no criticism about the Danish hunters and any resistance really about having a ban on lead in center-fired rifles. We should of course remember here that in Denmark we haven't been shooting with lead in our shotguns for more than 30 years. I have never shot in Denmark lead in my shotgun, just to give you an example, because steel is working fantastic. And there's no scientific proof that lead is in rifle ammunition is better than non-lead ammunition. So there's no really good argument to keep holding in a position where we still want to shoot with lead. So that's something that really gave hunting a quite big respect when we had this issue. In Denmark we have something that is also important, I think, is a Wildlife Management Council that advises the minister who is responsible for hunting and wildlife. And in this council there's a chairman who's unbiased, and then you have Danish Hunters Association. We are representing, of course, the hunters. Then you have the Danish Forest Association, you have the farmers, landowners, you have the Outdoor Council, which is an umbrella organization with all those who are out in nature to some extent. Animal Protection Denmark, BirdLife Denmark, and the Society of Nature Conservation. And if you put all these organizations to a table and you tell them you have to work together, you have to exchange knowledge, and that's maybe the main thing here, that we are actually in a position here where we can tell some of those organizations that we normally fight with to keep the hunting rights. When we can have a sit down and talk together them at this table, we can remove a lot of those things that they misunderstand. Just to give you a short example, some years ago, when we were having a revision of our hunting periods, the Animal Protection Organization said to me, hunters should not be allowed to shoot ducks 1.5 hours before sunrise and 1.5 hours after sunset. That's the opportunity we have in Denmark to shoot them. And do you know why they were against that? Anyone have a good idea about that? It's because the dogs can't see when it's dark. So that just gives you an impression about what challenge we have with these organizations. So sitting down at that table and discussing these things is very valuable. We also have this process every 4 years when we look also all the species that we have hunting periods on and look into them from a legal conditions, biological conditions, and ethical conditions to make sure that hunting is sustainable. And we have a university in Denmark looking into all the species every 4 years that we want to have a review on, and they are then doing a scientifically work to see all the species that we are having hunting periods at right now is sustainable. And when we have the best argument we can have to keep on hunting, because there are some of the other organizations that are very much against, for instance, that we are shooting species that are red listed. In Denmark, the fox is red listed. And no one understands why. It's just because some years ago the data showed, because of some diseases in the foxes, that the population dropped and they're red listed. But there's no reason, though, for not hunting foxes, because the red listing is just a view. Right now it will change and the population is very good, so no problem there. Another example on what we are discussing in the Wildlife Management Council is settlement of release of game birds in Denmark. We have had tradition for the last 25, 30 years that every 10 years we discuss how should the release of game birds be in Denmark, and then we make a settlement of these organizations that are represented in the Wildlife Management Council. So when we sit down there and make a settlement and give that to the minister who can decide what should be done here, there can be no criticism for BirdLife Denmark telling that we should stop releasing game birds, because they have been a part of that settlement. So they have to be quiet for the next 10 years. So right now, just in Denmark, we have made a settlement without the Danish Society for Nature and Conservation, but with BirdLife Denmark, Animal Welfare and Danish Forest Association and the landowners and so on. And we have made this settlement telling that mallard should be banned within the next 5 years, because there's a lot of scientific work being done on the effect of releasing mallard. Therefore, we have to take responsibility and stop releasing mallards in Denmark. That's what we're looking into. The grey partridge is still something we can release, but from the Danish Hunters Association, we would like that we should change the way we are releasing grey partridge. Instead of doing it the way we are doing it right now in Denmark, which is not sustainable. The Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust over here have proven what methods you should use, so we would like to follow their advice, and that's what we're working on with the grey partridge. And the pheasant is, as the settlement is still something you can release within the next 10 years, but if you're releasing pheasants, you cannot release more than 12 pheasants per hectare, no more than that. And if you want to release pheasants, also partridge, you have to do some improvement on biodiversity, and you have to target at least 3 to 4 non-huntable species. So we are actually trying to say, if we want to release game birds, we can only do it if we give something back to nature. So that's our principle, and this is the last one. When I started into this sort of business with hunting and wildlife management, I thought I better do some education within wildlife management, nature conservation, forestry and agriculture and all of that. But to be honest, that's not what it's about, because the easiest thing in the world is to manage wildlife. That's not difficult, not at all. But to manage people and get people to do the right thing that is best for wildlife, that's difficult. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Niels. It is such fabulous imagery of hunters in Denmark. Now, one of the nice things about being an anti-hunter all over the world is you all believe the same thing. One of the difficult things about being a hunter all over the world is we have very, very different views, and I just don't think there is any greater difference in the world of hunting than between the UK and the USA. So please welcome Lieutenant Col Dennis Foster, who is from the MFHA in North America.
I've been told that good speakers educate and entertain. With my time limit, you're not going to get any entertaining, and hopefully some education. The animal rights movement came about from the animal welfare movement around the 1970s. The big catalyst for how it progressed was this movement. Yeah, there was a lot of public exposure to Eskimos harvesting seals. When baby seals are white, or when they're young, and the method for culling them was to hit them on the head with a club. And it got worldwide attention. And even though Eskimos consider seals just like we, or some of us do, consider cattle or other livestock, and that's how they sustain their living. They use every part of it. So it's just a different culture. Animal rights is political. Animal welfare is caring for animals. Animal rights groups like to be called themselves animal protection, and we've heard that today as well. Why? Because it buys credibility with the media and the public, and it masks their true agenda to elicit donations and to get sympathy. Biological diversity, which is relatively new, and I was surprised to see that this was one of the headings of this meeting, is relatively new. And what it does, though, is it gives the animal rights movement inroads into many of the other issues that some of us are concerned about. In the United States, there's an organization called the Center of Biological Diversity, and it is filled with nothing but lawyers. And their job is to sue the government and the different government agencies, wildlife agencies, on anything that could possibly be wrong, from the way it's written to a violation of something they consider a violation. And the kicker is that when they sue, even if they lose, they get paid back by the organization that they sued and our federal government. And while in recent years they have added on a few scientists, so to speak, but again, the majority of them do nothing but sue. So it isn't what it appears to be. The vegan movement and the animal rights movement are pretty much the same, although it doesn't mean because you're a vegan, you're in the animal rights. I can tell you that the majority of animal rights organizations, the leaders are all vegans, and they have to be in order to be able to deal with the criticisms. But a true vegan rejects the use of any animal clothing or product, and they are the leaders of major movements. I coined this phrase several years ago. I've been doing this for about 40 years. Some of you may remember, regrettably. But I wanted to sum up something that really defined the animal rights movement. And I think this covers it. Nobody's been able to, she can add on or subtract, but it really covers it. It's a petless, meatless society. That is their goal. The donations don't go to shelters. The donations goes for their political agenda. And how do they do it? Shock and awe, and sometimes unpleasant things you see. We get upset with that when our children, but remember now with the children, for the most part, being able to get on the internet and see a lot of things, they're going to see it whether you like it or not. We've been sleeping for a very long time. I gave my first presentation to Face Group in England over almost 20 years ago. And I spoke to a bunch of different hunters and groups, and many of them thought, it wouldn't cover us. Ireland said, no, not us. Hunting is our culture. French said the same thing. Guess what? They're all in trouble now. No matter how gruesome it seems, again, children have been exposed to it. That's how you like to see the fox. That's how few people get to see the fox. That disgusts some people, but he's just getting his dinner. So is she. That doesn't bother us. But that bothers us, some people anyway, especially if you're in the urban environment, which is a major problem as we become more and more urbanized throughout all of our countries and our cities. That is the coyote. He's a descendant of the wolf. He's a majestic creature. 90% of the hunts in America hunt the coyote, not the fox, even though we call ourselves fox hunters. So it's important issue. They don't want to see the coyote like that, but he's also the major contributor to livestock destruction. He's expanded so much that he goes into the suburbs now, and he's actually been seen in the city parks in New York City. And now, when he gets there, he's looking for your dog or your cat. And they do a lot of damage that way, and it finally has given us some credibility to some urban people who don't want their dog or cat done in. Animal welfare is based on scientific research and habitat management with sincere concern for the animal's well-being. We have a responsibility towards animals to assure humane treatment. We realize man is responsible for the imbalances in nature and animals. We understand the difference between wild and domestic animals, and that's a key issue because most people don't, especially from an urban environment. They are not the same. Just because you've got a dog that descended from a wolf, he's nothing like the wolf anymore. We believe animals are essential to the quality of life, both mentally and physically. Animal rights is political. They believe in humane equality, and believe it or not, obscene as it may sound, an ant has the same rights as your child. It's based on hate, fear, emotion, and deception. It's not welfare. The activist tools, violence and protest, manipulation of the media, deception and misinformation, ruses, intimidation and fear. Classroom children, they're getting into our classrooms. They've been in it for many times. But they first got into our colleges, and many of the professors, especially in the United States, are rather far left wing. And what that has happened is that we get a lot of animal rights rather than animal welfare education. In the lower classes, in grammar school and so forth, they actually, animal rights groups have teacher conferences where they'll give them the lesson plan, and it'll be animal rights oriented rather than animal welfare oriented. And that has a huge deal. That's why it's important you get with your schools and your boards. Policy and confusion, legislation and litigation. Again, we're talking about the activist tools, and emotion, which is their biggest thing, and you've heard some about that, and that's true. Video and photos have the best results on that. Consumer intimidation. Intimidate the consumer and make him feel guilty for buying something. That's, again, one of their strategies. I'm going to talk to you mainly about strategies. Compromise. They start with nothing. You give up something until you have nothing. Think about that, and that's true. Almost all our legislation, they'll put something that's really far-fetched out there, knowing it won't pass, but we'll compromise. We'll go down a little bit, and each time they win, and you lose a little bit. Facts. Animal rights organizations make money over controversy. We, their targets, we spend money over controversy. This is a billboard that we've seen in America, and there are several other different types, and PETA puts it out. PETA is one of the largest animal rights organizations in the world, and it's supposed to equate people with the Holocaust with chickens going to be eaten. This is a thing I coined up, and I believe that you can really understand the animal rights strategy when you think about the domino effect. What they do, they'll concentrate on the different things that you are most offensive, and everybody in this room probably has something a little bit different. But usually in the hunting area, trapping seems to be the one that most people don't understand and is most offensive. So they concentrate on that until they can really make some headway, hoping to keep hunting and fishing and animal sports out of the agenda so they can still collect those people's donations who don't understand that they're donating to an animal rights organization. When that falls or gets there, they go to hunting. And they do that one by one by one. Animal rights groups. I'm not going to go into that. It's a busy slide, and there's a couple others. But I would like to talk about the RSPCA a little bit. The RSPCA, whether you like it or not, is an animal rights organization. Do they do some good things? Yes, they do. But the issue is, what do they spend their money on? Where do they go in legislation? And in America, we have lots of SPCAs. Because it's RSPCA, people think they all belong to each other, and they don't. They don't belong to each other at all. And so the RSPCA is really heavy on trying to stop hunting and that type of thing, whereas most people think, well, it's another animal welfare organization. The beauty in animal welfare or animal rights doctrine is the use of the phrases they use. When I try to explain the animal rights issue to people, I put all the different targets into 4 different groups: trapping, hunting, fishing. Now, who would have thought fishing would be a target of the animal rights 10 years ago? It is, and it's a major target. All legal activities, all etched in our history and heritage, all contribute to the perpetuation of wildlife. Horse shows, racing, rodeo, events, dressage, dog and cat shows. Animal rights interprets all these categories as stressful. Stress animal rights considers all stress animal abuse. Circuses, zoos, aquariums, nature, pets. Animal rights consider these as forms of confinement and exploitation. Animal rights considers pets as slaves. Fur industry, medical research, using animals, animal and fish farming, eating meat or fish, considered by animal rights as murder and barbaric. The precedent is the same for all of these activities. Animals are sometimes killed for the sake of human health and comfort. If you feel any one of these should be banned in any category, you're setting up the foundation and the demise of the others, whether you like it or not. The precedent is the same, the principles are the same, the focus needs to be the same. Expose animal rights philosophy and doctrine to the public. We don't have to, and you don't have to like these activities. You don't even have to agree with each other. We simply have to learn to tolerate each other's legal activities and pastimes, because we're all targets. We must have a common goal: expose the animal rights hidden agenda. They learned a long time ago, if they win our hearts, we lose our minds, and we're not using common sense. We've turned sentiment into legislation and law, and that is true in all our countries. That's how they get forward. Emotion wins over truth, facts, common sense every time. And I can give you umpteen examples of that, but I think a lot of you already know that. Children learn through play, and I was interested in some of the prior speeches here, or talks. I put together many years ago in a room child psychologists, teachers, counselors, and fox hunters. And we were trying to figure out how they were making so much headway with our kids. And one of the things that came out of that little meeting was we found out the main thing that came out of it was that children learn best through games and play rather than structured education. So what the animal rights group had, they learned that a while ago. We're a little slow to get together. The animal rights groups are very effective together. We are not so effective together. And anyway, they learn it. So they have all kinds of games the kids can play on the computers. And what they're doing is sending them a message. And the message may be kind of obscure sometimes, but it's there. This is a third grade, this was shown in a third grade class. They have teachers' conferences where they bring in teachers for animal rights conferences, and they actually give them lesson plans. And we all know if you've ever given a class, a lesson plan saves you a whole lot of time. But anyway, that's a coloring book. And it starts out, how would you feel if a cow ate you, caught you and bopped you and chopped you in two, fried you or boiled you or put you in a stew? And it goes on. This is a busy slide, and I don't expect you to see it. But basically it comes down to the number one agency or organization in the United States which tries to pass off as an animal welfare is the Humane Society of the United States. There is also an organization that belongs to the Humane Society of the United States called Humane Society International, which is here and in many, many of your countries. But those are just a few of the organizations the Humane Society of the United States runs. They're all over the world. They're in every country. They use snuff films, which are often staged. PETA, most of you know most about PETA, but most of you probably don't know that PETA kills 96% of the animals it collects. That's how they make it as far as the photos are concerned. That's why I should try to show you, if you did that to your dog, why would you do it to a fish? Or why? That's kind of billboards. Again, hens versus a factory working. Imprisonment, that's supposed to be animals in cages and people in jail. The World Society for Protection of Animals, now called World Animal Protection, 1.1 million supporters. By the way, the World Society or World Animal Protection is headquarters here in England. It was run by the same key personnel as the Humane Society of the United States. Remember, this is an international effort. My biggest criticism of the English have been depending too much on yourself and not getting involved with other countries that have the same problem. Summary of animal rights tactics, and then I'm over. Compromise, I've already talked about. Large sweeping bills that make concessions, perpetuate the lie and misinformation through the media. They're more effective in our country than they are in yours. Price them out of business, straddling both sides of the argument. Linguistics, rhetoric, words. We all have a different meaning for different cruel, inhumane. I bet you everybody in here has a slightly different meaning for that. And it has to do with our education and how we were brought up. Need to know, tell membership only what they need, contribute to other organizations that will help them, like the police and animal control, and affiliates, international. Hide the money. The best way to hide the money is to have an international organization, because your country may have too stringent, and they target our schools. Don't kid yourself. The animal rights groups know they can't change the world overnight. They'll work hard to do it, but they realize success will come in the future with the children they have nurtured for years.
Okay, Dennis, can we end it there? Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you so much. Trouble is, he's about to be followed by an Irishman, and God, they could talk, really. We've got another MFHA boss. It's Patrick Hayes, who's come here from Ireland to explain the Irish situation. Yeah, come on, give him a clap.
Thanks, Dennis. And you've brought back great memories of hunting in America, and I hunted there quite a bit, hunting coyotes, bobcat, and foxes, and down with the Midland and Alabama, Georgia, West Palm Beach, and so on, Middleburg. So great memories of that. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, special guests. As chairman, it's an honour for me to speak to you on behalf of the Irish Master Foxhounds Association. I want to thank Ed and his team and Hunting Kind for the invitation to present at such a prestigious event. I never realised how much of my life centred around community cohesion and wildlife management until I was asked to speak for this event. I suppose I was chairman of the Southern Regional Fisheries Cooperative for 17 years, and our objective there was to reinstate wildlife habitats and support local angling clubs and fishery owners. We work closely with the Department of Fisheries, Tourism, Promote Angling in Ireland, and it was a very worthwhile project, and it came as a result of what was a great rod war in Ireland, and the government tried to introduce a rod license. And if you want to know how to win a war, that's how we won that war. We refused to accept the rod license, and it took 2 years to beat it, and it was quite nasty, but we did win it in the end. And as a subsequent to that, we set up these cooperatives and these fisheries cooperatives, and they worked really well. For more than 40 years, I suppose I've been running a country lifestyle store based in Mallow in County Cork, and we're vendors of firearms and saddlery and horse and animal feeds and so on. Just give you a bit of my background. I hunted with the Duhallow foxhounds for most of my life. I've been joint master for 10 seasons. I'm currently master with the Ormond hunt in Tipperary, and a past joint master with the Ive hunt in Northern Ireland. In my younger years, I have represented Ireland at 4 World Fly Fishing Championships in Wales, was the first one, New Zealand, Canada and Italy. So I suppose conserving wildlife is not just a kind of a professional interest to me, but also it's a real passion of mine. Just, I suppose, 2022 was a difficult year for hunting in Ireland when insurers of hunting decided to leave the Irish market. I suppose the reason was twofold. One, there was a major claim of a rider out hunting, and the second one, which was quite disturbing, was the association with hunting. So consequently, we decided to establish the Field Sports Insurance Group, which consists of the Irish Master Foxhounds Association, the Irish Master Harriers, the Ward Union Staghounds, the Irish Horse Racing Authority, and the Point to Point Group. Thankfully, we have now insurance in place for the foreseeable future, but it was sad to think that insurance was going to bring down hunting and not the anti-blood sports lobby. Just in Ireland, I suppose our government is represented at a local level, by our county councillors, and I've been privileged to serve as a Fianna Fáil councillor for a number of years. And I suppose what it does, it just gives me great access to local and national politics and politicians, but also great insights into local communities and the operation of the local communities. So the different programs, the leader programs, the LAG programs, and so on, the LCDC, all those, they're so important to our local communities. So just recently there was a motion put down at our in County Hall in Cork, and the motion was put down by a Social Democrat, and she's currently leader of the Social Democrats. She's moved on from us, but the motion was to close the Youghal Greyhound track, the racing track. So it went to a vote. I opposed it vigorously and got support. So there's 55 councillors and we voted. So 49 voted to keep it open and there was only 6 voted to close it. So great support there for greyhounds and for racing and so on. So just a little bit of history. Just on the Duhallow foxhounds, it's a hunt rich in history and is reputed to be the oldest foxhound pack in Ireland, having been formed in 1745. So that's 280 years of continuous hunting. And it's really sad for me to be here because I've had some great hunting before the hunting ban came in the UK, and hunted with the Corn and a few more, the Bicester, Cheshire and so on. And it's really difficult to see, what's happened here. So 280 years, we hunt 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesdays and Saturdays. But an interesting part of our, I suppose, history is the word steeplechase. So this was as a result of a wager between 2 Duhallow Hunt members, Cornelius O'Callaghan, Edmund Blake. They raced 4 miles cross-country from the steeple of St. John's Church in Butterfund to the steeple of St. Mary's Church in Doneraile. And this was the very beginning of steeplechasing as we know it. So I think it's unclear who won the race. That debate is still going on. But the key point for us here is that the connection for us is huge between point-to-point racing, national hunt racing, and some of our best jockeys come from the hunting field and move on into point-to-points and into national hunt racing. So in 1839, the Grand Liverpool Steeplechase was the first official annual running of a steeplechase, which later became known as the Grand National. Now, there was a Captain Beecher, who was a former master of, guess who? The Duhallow Foxhounds. He was leading the race when he was thrown from his horse into the water And since then, the fence has been famously known as Beecher's Brook. Now, the Beecher family lived in Ballygiblin, just outside my hometown of Mallow, and that's where they had the hounds kennelled there for many, many years. Another famous race was the St. Leger Stakes, which gets its name from Hayes St. Leger, who was Lord Doneraile, also master of Duhallow Foxhounds. So you begin to see how strongly connected, everything in rural Ireland, and indeed further afield, is. I suppose, firstly, I'd like to, explain, I think, what community cohesion and wildlife management is in Ireland. And I suppose community cohesion, it's commonly defined as the ability of a community to function in harmony, characterized by a shared sense of belonging, trust, and strong positive relationships between people from diverse backgrounds. And this definition clearly shows the benefit of, I think, community cohesion. It's all very positive words: harmony, sense of belonging, trust, strong positive relationships. And hunting is an outdoor activity. It fosters and promotes relationship between all members of the community. And in Ireland, I suppose, north and south, fox hunting is enjoyed by a huge cross-section of the community, from farmers, tradesmen, business owner, professionals. It's an activity that brings everyone together, and it is important. I suppose in rural Ireland, there's few opportunities, for people to come together. The local hunt is arguably, it's crucial to its local environment. We support local pubs, hotels, imagine that in Ireland, local pubs, restaurants, feed merchants. We have the purveyors of lorries and horse boxes, the trade of farriers, saddlers, veterinary surgeons, and many other equine businesses. It also heightens the awareness to nature that hunting instigates in young people. This is a very crucial, we've loads of young people hunting. It gives them a sense of accountability for their interaction with their natural environment. And wildlife management, moving on, is, I suppose, it's the process of influencing interactions among and between wildlife, its habitats and people. It involves bringing people together to a diverse group consisting of the local community. And that includes the farmers, the wildlife experts, the conservationists, government departments, you've land managers, and of course the hunters. So that's really what wildlife management is. Habitat preservation is something that we in the hunt have been doing in Ireland from the very beginning. And the map there, it just highlights in green, some of the many wildlife management conservation areas created by hunts. So all those coverts and all those conservation areas, we've been managing those for many, many, many years. These conservation areas, they're home to many species of flora, fauna, which otherwise would not have the opportunity to thrive. And these areas continue to be maintained by the hunts to the present day, as well as the historical records and the minutes that we have kept in our clubs. It was mentioned about FACE, so the IMFHA, the Irish Master Foxhound Association, we sit on the committee of FACE Ireland, and we recently changed the board, and we had a general election with local elections back in 24, and we produced a very glossy booklet, which we gave to all our local councils, local TDs, and so on. And it was a very, very worthwhile project, and there was a lot of work put into it. So the IMFHA sits on the Committee of FACE Ireland, which is the European Federation for Hunting and Conservation. So they work together with their members to share expertise on environmental policy development and implementation to benefit hunting and conservation. This expertise is supported by a knowledge base gained through monitoring research developments and maintaining close ties with their strategic partners. They emphasize that successful habitat restoration, it requires the active participation of the hunters, the farmers, and the local stakeholders. I suppose there's a clear understanding within government. We established, it's called the Hunting Association of Ireland many years ago, and that's an umbrella body that consists of the Irish Master of Foxhounds Association, the Irish Master of Harriers Association, the Ward Union Staghounds, the Master of Mink Hounds, the Master of Foot Harriers, and the Master of Foot Bagels. And we have a department of official from the Department of Agriculture involved. So we have an agreed set of rules on hunting and wildlife management. This agreement includes terrier work, the humane dispatch of foxes, and so on. And this is an agreed policy. And this is recently highlighted in the presidential election, which was a bit not great. There was only 2 candidates, but one candidate was constantly questioned about fox hunting and her support for fox hunting. But her reply was, look, there's an agreement in place between the associations and the government, and we're happy with that. It's working. So that was a very positive outcome, and we continue to work with the government and with the departments, with the OPW and with the Department of Agriculture constantly. So recently, there was a private member's bill was put forward by Ruth Coppinger, who was a local TD representing the People Before Profit party. The bill was to ban fox hunting in Ireland, and it was a clear copy and paste of the bill which was enacted in the UK over 20 years ago. And thankfully, the bill has not progressed, and for now, there's no support in moving the bill beyond the first stage. I think it's vital we stay informed, to protect the hunting tradition in Ireland and maintain our position as wildlife conservers and habitat conservers. So there's lots. I had loads of slides that I was going to put up with statistics and everything, but I just wanted to keep it a bit light and not too serious. But I suppose in conclusion, wildlife management and conservation, are key components in sustaining our wildlife and the environment. So the voluntary efforts of the hunt clubs in the process is invaluable, and no less relevant is the educational aspect for the younger generations in the understanding of their interaction, with their natural environment. I think that's key going forward. And I suppose as a final message, I'd like to quote, and I know a lot of people, Dr. Jane Goodall, she's just won the Nobel Peace Prize, and she's passed away. While I may not personally, agree with her ideals, which I don't agree, but I have respect for the work that she did. And I'd like to believe that her final message, it actually resonates really strongly with all who have a passion for community, for wildlife management, and for conservation, which we do, which I have a great passion for. So, and I quote, "In the place where I am now, I look back over my life. I look back at the world I've left behind. What message do I want to leave? I want to make sure that you all understand that each and every one of you has a role to play. I want you to know that whether or not you find that role that you're supposed to play, your life does matter, and that every single day you live, you make a difference in the world. And you get to choose the difference that you make. Above all, I want you to think about the fact that we are part, when we are on planet Earth, we are part of Mother Nature. We depend on Mother Nature for clean air, for water, for food, for clothing, for everything. And as we destroy one ecosystem after another, as we create worse climate change, worse loss of diversity, we have to do everything in our power to make the world a better place for our children to live today and for those that will follow. You have it in your power to make a difference. Don't give up. Now, for me, I think that's a very powerful message, and I'm taking it as a hunter, as a conservationist. From my perspective, I certainly will continue to support community cohesion and promote wildlife management. I suppose, look, it's a wonderful event, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your attention. I'll answer any questions as they come up, but I suppose in the spirit of community cohesion, I'd like to say how very important this event is, and events like this, and I think it's a start, bringing people together, to share knowledge and perspectives, and to support each other, as we all try to find our way forward. There's a lot coming down the track, and in Ireland, like it's not easy, and I can see it's getting more difficult, and it's with the onslaught of social media and so on, it's difficult to combat that. And I've been targeted on a good number of occasions, and you'd look at it and you'd say, and you check where did it come, and it's coming from the UK, and they put a picture up in your red coat or whatever, and a fox slaughtered, and look, this fella, he's slaughtering foxes and so on. So we have to challenge that, and we have to deal with that. But I think the best way forward is at local level, and I think this grassroots is so important. It's so important. I just want to commend Ed and his team and Hunting Kind for hosting, such a marvelous event. Well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you so much. I mean, we've listened to three very different cultures, very different views, and same rules apply. If you stay there, pass the microphone between you. If anybody has a question about the national characteristics, I'm going to come straight to David.
I think Colonel Foster said he was disappointed or frustrated that the hunting organisations in different countries didn't cooperate and didn't coordinate. And as I was listening to Mr. Sondergaard's presentation, I started to wonder whether he's aware of any of his partners in Denmark who are in the conservation world having relationships with organisations in Britain to whom people like us should be talking, because it may be that your Danish committee members can tell people in Britain of their good experience of working with you.
Niels, could you answer that one? Who should we talk to?
Can you hear me? Yes, I think that's a good point. We are cooperating together with BASC, with FACE, as you mentioned, CIC, and trying to exchange knowledge and experience in what we are working with. Last Christmas, I think, or maybe just after Christmas, we had a meeting with Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust from the UK, together with the Danish Gamekeepers Organization, and we were discussing some of the challenging things we have regarding releasing of game birds and trying to exchange experience on that. And in Denmark, we just recently been a part of the IUCN, and we are also trying by talking to the members in Denmark from all the green organizations about how can we make sure that more and more of the decisions that are made are scientifically or evidence-based. As the previous speakers talked about, that there's so much fake news. I don't know if you can use that word. But that is maybe the biggest challenge, that a lot of organizations, as I see it, especially green ones in Denmark, are not focusing on facts, because that destroys their story. That's the main thing.
Yeah. David again.
I mean, it's great to hear about cooperation with organisations like the BASC, but I saw an organisation represented by a logo with a couple of lapwings on it. And I wonder whether the people whose organisation is represented by lapwings have a relationship with the RSPB or Curlew Conservation or the BTO or the kind of organisations who are interested in conservation of waders here.
maybe what we normally would do, that we will go to Basque if we have something that are regarded to the UK. When we are having meeting in FACE, we often have the BirdLife International and talking to those people there. So we're trying to improve that, but set in a closed area here, some of the information that we are having right now about the Commission's work done on looking into the proof of different species being sustainable to hunt, because we have lack of data. That is a big issue. So we're actually together with BirdLife Denmark trying to press to get more data, so we can make a much better judgment whether these species are sustainable to hunt. In Denmark, we have a tradition since 1941 to collect data from what hunters are shooting. We also have a wing survey, and together with another organization called Waterfowlers Network, we're trying to improve the data collection with the birds of prey in Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Holland, England, the whole of UK. So we're trying every time we can to underline the necessity for organizations, whether they are hunting organizations or organizations concerned about wildlife management, nature conservation, to work together. But it's a huge challenge.
Niels, could you pass the microphone to Dennis, please? Dennis, in America, how do you choose your friends? What rules do you have for choosing who you work with?
Could you say that again?
How do you choose the organizations you work with in the United States? What are you looking for? I mean, Niels has described a lot of very pro-hunting organizations and one or two that are more in the general area. You, I guess, are not going to partner up with Humane Society.
Right. The difficulty is the animal rights organizations are structured and they work together. Animal welfare organizations like us, we don't work together that well. You're worried about somebody stealing your members or somebody stealing your ideas rather than working together. And we have what we call now the International Union of Hunting with Hounds, which is 10 countries that hunt on horseback with hounds. And we were one of the first organizations to do that. And the idea is to share information, to share things that we did well and things that didn't go so well. And it really works. The problem, again, with our communities are we aren't as good as the animal. They're tiered. If you don't like PETA, you can go to an organization in America called FARM. FARM is against all farming. It doesn't sound that way, does it? It goes back to rhetoric. So they're structured so that if you don't like this one, well, maybe you'll contribute to this one or this one, whereas we don't have that same thing.
Thank you. Any more questions, please? Here we go. I'll come back to you, Dennis, if I may.
Thank you. I'd like to congratulate Ireland on making 6 of their dog breeds, mostly hunting dogs, a part of their intangible cultural heritage. I wonder if that's low-hanging fruit for us. It's something we should think about. We are going to lose the Otterhound, for a start. The Kerry Beagles included. Nobody's talked about beagles or our native hare population here, because the focus is almost always on foxes and people wearing hunting pink. And we have to fight back because beaglers are out there. I had mud on my boots on Saturday. And I live in London. I'm London born and bred. And you need more people like me. Not me personally, but city people, because we are connected to.
Thank you. Let's talk about the dog question. Were you somebody about to applaud that? Yes, can we have a round of applause for that? Yes, come on. Thank you. We encourage spontaneous applause. Pat, could I throw that one to you, please, because it's a cultural question. Talk about the dog breeds.
It's just, it's an interesting comment. And I suppose going back to the great liberator, Daniel O'Connell, he was the Kerry Beagle. So those hounds are now with the Scarteen hunt. And so technically they're preserved forevermore. They're on the list, the UNESCO, which is a great start. So it's unique, and they still have a line back to that Daniel O'Connell breed from Waterford in County Kerry. So it's something that, I want to take on board, and I think it's something that we need to take on board in Ireland, is to broaden that and to get on this train that Nick and Hunting Kind are starting. I think it's a very unique opportunity
to put a minority group into a special category.
Great, thank you. Right, one more. Dilys, I'm afraid, sorry, at the back. You can ask them over lunch. Dilys.
Yeah, I was really interested in Niels's point from one of your results from your surveys about the acceptability of hunting in Denmark was because people like it. In the trophy hunting debate, one of the things that people really don't like about trophy hunting is that people enjoy it, as if it would be more acceptable if you did it and didn't enjoy doing it. And it's that whole kind of like enjoying hunting being seen as being somehow immoral. So I just wondered, yeah, why that sort of difference in opinion? You know, what's your reflections on that? That some people think that it's bad to enjoy it, and then others think, you know, that's what makes it more socially acceptable because people enjoy it, and whether there's other reflections from the other countries on the enjoyment factor.
Niels, how did you get past that?
I think the main thing here is to be honest. And when you're saying I like to hunt, it's not I like to kill a lot of animals, because the shot in Denmark especially, it's a very small part of hunting. I often go to Norway to stalk reindeer, and sometimes I'm there for 5 days without releasing a shot and going back without nothing. That's hunting for me because I enjoy that, but I try to underline that hunting is so much more than just killing an animal. And if and when we are going to kill something, we have to do it so humane as possible. And then back to eating it. If we don't eat it, there's no understandable in our society or the green organizations. Why should you shoot something or kill something and not use it? They can't understand that. And just a short example, last time we were discussing hunting periods, the animal welfare organization said, oh, you shouldn't be shooting snipe. Snipe is such a small bird, why are you shooting that? You can't eat that. And we said, oh yes, we eat it. And I think people are eating shrimps as well. That's even smaller. So what's your point? So being honest about it is crucial, because everyone knows that hunters actually like to go out, hunt, and also to shoot. And which we're telling, oh, we have to do it, because if we don't do it, the animal will get sick or something. That's not true. People don't believe you when you say that.
Thank you, Niels. We're going to leave it on a point of honesty. Thank you very much to the panel. Round of applause, please.